Hey, so this is another episode of Wandering Off. For this episode, I sat down with Maite. It was also exciting for me because I didn't know her before. I had a project week at school, and she was leading the project week. Was one of the people that was leading the project week. So, except for that, I didn't know her. And all of the other people that have been in the podcast so far are people that I've known for quite a long time. So it was very interesting, exciting for me as well to do a podcast with someone that I do not have that much background info of. Which is also nice because otherwise I have to give a lot of information to you guys in the intro. And this time that's not needed because basically everything is in the podcast itself. The only thing that might be good to know is that the kind of week where where I met her, it was at my school, at my study, and we had a week about what our values are and what we find important, and to have this to help us create a direction for ourselves. It was about leadership the week, but leadership also with the idea that if you have your own values set in order, then you can have vision and direction and stay strong and be a good leader. So I really like that approach. Very inspiring. And part of that was that one of the exercises that we did was that we all because with our class we know each other very well and we're very good at giving feedback with care. So what we did was that we sat down together and she wrote down a couple of characteristics of different aspects of people that you might or might not want to work on. So we had some things to start our thoughts from, and then we would observe what other people do in the world as a leader, but also as an individual, and what that does with you as an individual. So you really get back a lot of information that's very valuable and from different people, different perspectives. I thought it was awesome. So there were a couple of people that missed the exercise that week. So I decided to redo the exercise after the week with the people that missed it. So that's maybe a bit of information that might be good to know. Except for that, that's all. Oh yeah, and I asked Maite to send me something of hers. And she sent me something which is not done at all. It is a demo. It's just an idea. But I really like that she just sent it anyway. And it's like, well, this is something I'm working on. I don't care that it's not completely ready yet. Just put it there as long as you say that it's in progress. So that is what she sent me. So that's what you will hear in the intro. And enjoy the podcast.
In a world full of color,
by the way, the podcast is in English. I'm not
Oh,
sure
really?
if I told you
Oh,
that.
okay, no.
But I think it should be fine, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm quite excited actually because until now, every time I've been doing a podcast with someone, I already known them for a while, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only met you for 1 week, a couple of weeks ago. So it would be very nice to know a little bit more of your story. Like I know that you did Codarts, and I know a little bit that you worked with Sounds of Change.
Yep.
So maybe it would be nice if you tell a little bit about what your process has been towards that.
Okay. Towards Sounds of Change.
Towards Codarts and how you developed towards Sounds of Change after that.
Okay. Well, that's a big story. I will try to make it short.
Really immediately diving in.
Okay, so of course when I was, or maybe not of course, but when I was young I had music lessons.
Yeah.
And to make that story really short, I didn't really enjoy it as much as I hoped for. So many of my teachers, I had different ones because I got frustrated all the time. So I kept looking for different teachers, piano teachers mainly, that would, they were also so much about just playing the music from sheet music, and it was super boring. And no one really asked me, who are you, what do you want to play, until I was like 14 years old. So from my 9th or 8th until 14, I felt like music was something really nice. I wanted to, you know, dive into music, but I could never really find myself in that so much.
Yeah, that's funny because you also say that you have teachers that are teaching you that, okay, I'm going to move this a little bit like this, that are teaching you and you don't really get what you want, but you're searching for what you want. So there's already a feeling there, like, oh, but I want more out of this, but it's not, I'm not getting it or something.
And of course, as a child, you're not so aware of these things. The only thing I noticed was that every time I had a teacher that said, you have to practice all the scales from down, up, and then back, and whatever, upside down, I felt like, no, I don't want to do it. And I was a really autonomous child, I think. I would say, I don't want to do that. And then the teacher was like, but you have to.
That's really funny.
And then at some point, I think it was 11 or something, and I introduced myself to people with, I am Maite, and when I grow up older, I'm not going to be a piano player. So that was my first introduction to people. Yeah. Because the image of a pianist or a piano player for me was really not me. And I did play music a lot, but that was not my future image.
But you were playing piano. So it was already a part of you, but you were like saying like, oh, my main thing that I do is maybe piano, because it's important enough to say that you are not going to be a piano player or something?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I just remember that I really felt that. I just... And I had my dad was very supportive in this journey. So he kept looking with me for the right teachers, or the teachers that would, you know, really hit the right button, because he saw that I was easily, you know, I could easily play a lot of things. Yeah. So he was also trying with me to find the way, you know, to get me motivated enough. Yeah. So at some point, so I'm skipping some things in time, but at some point, I was, you know, at the end of my high school, I did the highest level, so I could go to university. I was interested in psychology, but also music was still really, really something important to me. But then also in my high school, I did music also as a graduating, how do you say it? Like the final exams in music was... Yeah. It just started that was a possibility to do, so I did that. But also there, I didn't feel I wasn't really motivated so much. Not as much as I wanted to. So at some point I had to make a decision after school. What am I going to do? Psychology, music. So I went to these orientation days at the conservatory, and I thought, I just really want to play music. Let's go for it. And then I did this pre-year in Zwolle to do classical piano and to get my skills a bit higher. And then I realized, okay, me alone at the piano, that's also not me. I just really want to play with people. I'm interested in people. and in people's behavior and everything. So maybe something sociology related, but I still want to use music. So then I thought, let's do music education, the Bachelor in Music Education at Codarts. And
which has both a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
well,
so,
a little bit more music maybe than psychology, but still.
Yeah. But still,
But
you would be educated in all of those. Well, it is about working with people.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to become a teacher so much. But then I also thought, well, if I'm going to study this, I don't want to become a music teacher, or maybe I want to change the music education system because it's not applying and it's not appealing to the teenagers.
This is so funny because I was just like an hour ago, I was teaching my dad piano, and we were talking about music education. We were literally talking about that when I'm teaching him, I'm really paying attention to the fact that I deliberately took him away from sheet music and towards more experiencing, like letting him think a little bit, like, oh, what does this sound like?
Mm-hmm.
Do I like this? What do I feel about this? And really improving his musical, how do you say, his imaging, his musical image that he can make in his head by letting him sing stuff and stuff like that. And I was just talking with him that I feel like that is a problem within our education, because we have all these people that get taught really young in a very classical way, and because they're taught that young, they're used to that education has to be like that.
Yeah.
There's no other possibility because it's the only thing that they know.
Exactly. And so what happens when you're a teenager and you get a teacher that says you have to play this and this and this, you feel like, I'm not going to do it. You become this really arrogant teenager.
Yeah.
And I think music is such an important element to develop your identity, especially when you're a teenager. You should actually want to have music in your life and have it in the way that it shapes your identity, and you can explore freely and you feel you've been taken seriously in that, instead of playing stupid pieces of music.
Yeah. I'm curious about what you said. That you said, I feel like music is an important part of developing your identity when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
Can you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think, I can say many things about it. I've been running a lot of projects with teenagers. I've also been working in high schools.
Yeah.
And,
let me test one thing for a moment. Yeah, okay. I was unsure for a moment. But we can move this a little bit closer.
Closer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Cool. And, teenagers, there's many things to say about teenagers, about the age between, let's say, like 13 to 18 or something, or 16, or what age you're in school, until maximum 18. And you could see that music is one of the things, of course, to find who do you relate to. So what kind of who are my peers? What are they listening to? And how do I relate to them? Through music, of course.
Yeah.
So there's this cultural thing. What is the culture in school, and what kind of music fits that? But also, I've been doing a lot of composing projects with teenagers, and finding their own voice through music, and what, to shape the music in the way that it means something to them. So what kind of emotions, what kind of lyrics, what kind of topics do we want to talk about, or do we want to bring into the music? That's a very interesting explorative journey, I feel. When I take that with teenagers, in the first place, they would just like to play the pop songs that they know, because it's safe.
Yeah.
But as soon as
safe.
And they know it, and it's cool. If you can play it, it's cool.
Yeah.
Of course, you get credits also from your peers.
Yes.
So you just want to play the songs. And then when they're in my project, I would say, that's great that you can play them, and I want you to explore something beyond that. So there's going to be some kind of relation to pop music, because that's what you bring, of course. It's your background, it's your interest. But I also want to stretch your boundaries a bit and find what is actually authentic in your voice, and how can we make something that we're going to put on stage and you feel this is meaningful, this is what I want to sing about or play. And I think that the way it shapes your identity is not only just playing by yourself, but it's also because in that creative process, you're working together with other people. And all of those other people, some of them you might know as a teenager, some of them are maybe not the ones that you would normally hang out with, but you have to collaborate.
Yeah.
So you're going to find in that process different people with different opinions, different ideas. And from that, you're going to shape that identity because it's reflecting back on you. So I'm putting, it's a little bit abstract maybe the way I talk about it, but it's a way to say, okay, we can put ideas together and see how are we going to make choices and still feel that everyone is committed to the music that we make. And I think that's an important element that shapes your identity. And if you put music with that, music never lies, in my opinion. So music is something, whenever people start playing, they will find this very unique input of themselves or sound or ideas. So for me, that's the channel, let's say, to this very personal thing inside to it.
To a channel towards connection and development
and emotions,
yes.
or whatever is inside. For a long time, I'm a very optimistic, bright person, like happy person, but my music is very, very dark sometimes. Yeah, and it's very much also a feeling inside, and I cannot express it in any other way than through music. And it's always coming back in the music, the way I feel, the way whatever I need. So sometimes I'm super hyper energetic, and then I just need to play calm music because that's something that also relates to the other side of myself. So it's or the way I improvise. You know, I like to make really long sentences. You can hear it straight away back in my improvisations. I make too long sentences, like sometimes too long. It's like, can you please stop
did you
your sentence?
have a melody line or something just keeps going and going and going and evolving? Oh, but that's really cool as well. That's a really nice parameter to work with.
Yeah. Or listen back to that and feel like, that's interesting. Okay, it's really something that is saying that's me. Yeah. But what if I would change it? And then it's shaping my identity again. So how do I relate to whatever is coming back when I start composing? And that's something I love to search for with teenagers, because in that process, they will also gain this confidence, you know, that whatever they would bring to the music, it's okay. And it's them. And it's important that they feel that they can express themselves in that situation and feel safe enough. And of course, in the educational system or the way it's now like organized, it's not always that safe. It's not always asking for the very authentic self of these teenagers. So that's something to work with.
Which is also a shame, because we very quickly we lose what the music is about or something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So then you start reproducing music that already exists or just working on skills. But you want to, for me at least, even if someone would play one note.
From the spark.
Yeah. And if that one note has this intention or feeling or expression or some kind of sincerity, for me that's so much more valuable than all the incredible notes that you can play in one bar.
It's also something that I'm really busy with lately, that I really feel. It was already something that I was thinking about before, because I did the week with you, the leadership week, and you were talking about what your values are, what you find important, what you want to do in the world. And I really feel very strongly about that. And I think you also noticed that I really feel very strongly about that. And recently I've really had this feeling like, I want to do something with connection and honesty and really truthfulness, you know, like, and sometimes I feel like music might not be the best tool, and then then I'm like, okay, but I do enjoy it, but it's also like, you know, like conversation really gives a lot of room to be honest and direct, and sometimes I feel like music seems, I don't know how to say it. It seems a hard tool to work with in that regard, and
because it's more abstract, you mean?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, because also maybe because I don't know. I think I also just have to keep that in the back of my mind while I'm experiencing stuff and seeing, because you're saying a lot of things about music that I find very beautiful to hear. And you're like, oh yeah, music can really, you can't lie in music, for example. But then I don't really feel it yet or something. It's not something that is within me as well, I'm just hearing it. I'm not experiencing it so far. So I feel like I should hear that and just let it be part of my experience and see if I can find that somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, or maybe look at the artists that you find really inspiring. To what extent, why do you feel they're so inspiring? For me, often it has to do with a very honest way of presenting yourself, and maybe also the way that I have experienced it myself is for quite some years I was really blocked in music. I couldn't play anymore, and I was super afraid to show myself through music, because for me it was super honest. So for me it felt like if I show myself in music and people have an opinion about it, that's something valuable.
Hurt me in my soul.
It's super vulnerable. And then I thought, well, maybe I should be, or then you get these concepts of I should be playing better, I should practice more, I should whatever you should do. And then now I'm back on track with my playing. And it's just, no, I had to accept that I have my own style. Actually, I love that I have my own style and my own voice. And it's super vulnerable, of course.
Yeah.
And I cannot say that I never had the fascination to play all the jazz standards. When I did my master's in jazz piano, I just felt like I don't want to play all the jazz standards. Yeah. They're beautiful pieces of music, but there's hundreds, thousands of people that can play this really well. And I don't think I'm the one that can do that can level up to that. So my teacher then said, he was awesome, really great teacher. He said, well, you should really start composing your own music. What you're trying to do with teenagers, you should do for yourself.
Yeah.
So I started to compose, and then I found my own very interesting points of view in music that for me are supernatural, like intuitive. It's a very intuitive process.
Yeah.
And for other people, it's a signature of mine. They can hear it's really surprising them, or it's really the voice that I have, or what I bring in music. And then for me it's like, but I can finally just make it. It's just like,
it was already
it just
there.
comes out. So maybe it's also the thing that I needed the most, to feel that the honesty, that it's okay, however someone would interpret my music, because that's a free space. And I don't know if you mean that makes it a little bit more abstract also. When you talk about something, you can be really direct. Yeah. You can have a conversation about very clear things that we agree on in the language. And the language of music, we don't agree on how that resonates with you. Yeah. That's very personal. Yeah. And I actually love that space, because my fascination is also that things can be really abstract and big, and it can be so different, your reference to it or your interpretation. And I would be so interested in how you would hear it. And that brings another perspective in my world, which I really love. So that's also truthfulness, but then in a different way. Or honesty in a different way. Because
it's good that I'm going to listen back to this podcast, because that's a lot to take in for me. Really. It's
also very philosophical.
But I can also hear that you have, often you have thought about things a lot, and then when someone asks about it, it's like, but then it can be 5 years of thought being compressed in 10 minutes, and then the other person's like, okay, well, that's a lot,
Yeah, but that's also interesting, because I would often, when I'm at a certain point, and I've probably been thinking about stuff for years, I don't realize that other people have not been thinking about this for 5 years. So it's like an interesting thing that whenever I'm at a certain point, I think this is normal, or this is, or a friend of mine also said last weekend, this story is going really fast. Maybe you should start at the beginning. And I said, you're right. So it's also interesting feedback.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's fine, but I just have to catch up to that.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
So what means honesty to you then? When you say I love the honesty, and actually I'm struggling with how music plays a role in that.
Well, I feel I don't know. I really have this tendency to break everything down to its fundamental component. You know, so I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to school to study music. Okay, why do I study music? Because I think there's something within music which is really important to me. Okay, so why do you think that is important to you? I'm kind of winging it. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to the point where I was supposed to go, but then I think, well, it's something about I don't know. I think that the things that really inspire me have something in common lately, and I've been thinking about what that is. So when I'm talking with someone and there's some kind of spark, it's like, oh, you know, like there is something here going on. And when someone is writing music and you're really inspired and you listen it back, it's like, oh, there's something going on, you know. And I think and it seems more and more to me that there's a fundamental something fundamental that we all crave, that is a combination of connection and honesty and truthfulness and love or something. It seems like that now is going to get really abstract very quickly as well, but it seems like we are already connected in some way, but somehow we've lost it, and every time we come a little bit closer, it's just pure joy. And I'm not sure what your original question was.
What honesty means to you and why it's a struggle to find that with music.
Yeah, because I think I find less of that joy in music recently. I think that might be it.
And maybe, like you said, you feel you really like to break things down to core elements, which is easier in language, maybe.
Yeah.
In conversations. But the connection, if you talk about connection, I feel like, yeah, but then bringing people closer together, music is the most easy tool for that. But it's also interesting that maybe how do you always play with people together, or do you just play by yourself?
Yeah, 50-50, I think. 50-50. Yeah, there is something going on in music. That's true. When you're improvising and there's some kind of connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe it's also about, so when I look at the work that I've been doing with Sounds of Change and everything around that, it's also bringing people in a very complicated context, where it's because it was in the Middle East, so it's in refugee camps and in marginalized areas, and people are very divided and very disconnected from society. They feel alienated. There's not much space for their emotional world. Everyone is struggling with trauma, but it's not mentioned because, of course, you're not going to say you have a trauma. Everyone has a trauma, so it's very hidden subjects. And
it's also hard to support each other, I think, in that environment, because everybody is already having they already need all their attention for themselves.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's a survival mode. So you will always continue, and people are super strong and resilient, and it's cool. But then in the processes that we did, we brought people together and started to really create this space where they would share, also verbally, not only through music, but also verbally. How do you feel? How do you actually feel? Yeah. So this concept of checking.
That is quite scary, I think, as a Dutch person.
Yeah.
That I don't know if you've been I think you grew up in the Netherlands. Like if you're just a Dutch person, just grew up here and to study and then goes there, it's really, I can imagine that it's really intimidating to be there and to feel like you are ready to deal with these stories.
Yeah, and it's also to what extent someone wants to share their story. So it's not, I'm just inviting people to be themselves.
Yeah.
and whatever you want to share, which is all right. So also if you don't want to share, that's all right. So at some point we started to shape this group of people in the north of Jordan, and they would just, slowly, step by step, open up a little bit more, just a little bit more, or and as soon as we could, we would start to play music and improvise and create lyrics. And at some point we started to create music around their memories. We said, bring up a memory that you would never forget about, and it can be beautiful or sad or raw or whatever. And so different stories came up, and they really were there for each other to support, because there was a lot of emotions, of course, with that.
Yeah.
And then they started to compose music with that, and half of the group never played music before, but the music that came out was so strong and so pure and so honest and so, in every way you would feel it. And I don't speak Arabic, but I could totally feel the words. So, and in that process, they would support each other and find their own voices, but then having people that can play music would help them to bring out their voices.
Yeah.
And I think that was such a way of, if you say honesty and connection and this pureness.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's just how that process is facilitated, and what are the boundaries of that process, and how do we create a space where we can really be ourselves, and that the most painful stories can come up, but then we translate them into something valuable, and they had all their values in there. It was so. I thought, wow, if this is what music can do, then you don't have to be an amazing musician or anything. It's just the value of each human being can share something in a story. And I like to make that story into music, but it could as well be in language, or in storytelling in whatever way, or make it a visual composition or whatever. It can have different outcomes. And for me, it's music, but maybe it can be different for everyone.
Yeah, I think also there is some truth in it, that the more room there is for abstraction, that's nice if there's some room for abstraction, because there's something going on there that disappears when it's not being expressed within abstraction.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't really always grasp the everything. Or for me, sometimes I have evenings where I start listening to music, and it just touches a feeling that I cannot express, not in any other way, but this music can touch it.
Yeah.
Which is such a relief. So it's beyond words for me, often.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's really something that makes me so happy to talk about this. That I'm like, oh, there is some mystery still, or something. Sometimes I have felt that I'm like, is this it, or something with life? And then when I talk about this, when I've been starting thinking about this, there's so much more light in my life. Yeah. Because it is like, there is something going on.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but I feel that it's meaningful, and I'm going to be there to facilitate it in this world. Yeah. Yeah.
And that is the magic. I totally think so.
I also see with you, there's this... you recognize what I say, I feel. It's beautiful.
You know why? Because often also I composed beautiful pieces of music, also with teenagers, for example, and we made a recording, and whenever we would listen back to it or look back, it wasn't the same. So it's really, it's really what happens in the space in that moment, and how people relate to each other and to the music. Yeah. And then maybe we don't need a billion recordings that are really perfectionistically fine-tuned in the studio. We need the honest, raw music that comes from inside. Yeah. And that's more valuable, but maybe it doesn't have to be everywhere on stage, or maybe, I don't know. I
also heard something a short while ago that very often bands record a demo, and then they record the official track, and then they can't get it as good. Yeah. Because the demo had the spark. Yeah.
And I totally know this feeling for myself. I had this fear of performing, and every time I was on stage, I would be disconnected from my emotions. So because I was in my fear. So I would just have this tunnel vision, and I couldn't relate to the music, and yet technically you could play everything.
Yeah.
But that doesn't do it. Not for me in that moment, but also not for your audience, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, because the audience... Yeah, I've been playing with this idea a little bit lately, that very often when you feel something, the other person feels it too.
Mm-hmm.
So that maybe you can't see what the other person is feeling, but the fact that you are feeling something is probably also what the other person is feeling.
Yeah.
And somehow...
Yeah.
Like, except for that, I don't dare to say anything, but yeah.
I have this also in group processes. When I have an idea, I'm not going to say it because I know it's going to pop up somewhere in the group.
Yeah.
And I start to notice that this is really true.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's really exciting.
Because
Did you also do it with us?
I think so. At some point, when we did this round of feedback on each other, or feedback's not the right word, but like talking about
observations.
Yeah, it was observations, and I thought, I have so many ideas, and I thought, but it's somewhere in the group already, so I don't always have to. Sometimes as a leader, when you lead the group, you just want to be on it. But I learned to be more laid back.
Yeah.
It's like laid back or lean back leading, I call it sometimes, because it's there.
Yeah.
And I don't have to always put it in the middle.
Yeah.
Because if I feel the need that there should be another part in the music or whatever, someone else will say it. So that's also magical.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I was so surprised about how much you noticed in a week. It's really absurd. It's really like, you gave us, you were also talking about this, I don't remember what you called it, something with interaction, social interaction,
Mm-hmm.
something that you were studying on a little bit.
Transactional analysis. Yeah.
What was it? Because it sounded really interesting.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that was also a part of why you could tell us so much in such a short time.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe, but I just started that, so it's not...
Maybe it's also just intuition and
Definitely,
experience.
and a lot of experience with different people. I think you guys are also really open, so... Yeah, I think it's a life skill, to be honest. As a child, I was already so fascinated by people. I was always friends with many different people because I was just genuinely interested in many people, and I still have that. So it's something I'm always curious. I would always try to understand someone else, and then at some point, when you're really opening up to people, it's just noticing things, and then what I did with you guys was also being honest with what happened inside of me. So. I don't know, that says a lot about me also. It's not only, it's your effect on me. It's not saying that you should change that. It's also information about me when I say that. But I was just trying to express whatever happened, what I noticed inside of me. Yeah. And I think a lot of people noticed the same thing. So that was interesting. Also for me, interesting to see.
Yeah, you get the same thing 3 times or something. Yeah.
And of course, when I start working with a group, I just start to immediately being really aware of who is in front of me. What do I notice? How is someone sitting? What kind of sentences do I hear him say? And this transactional analysis is really about communication. So what do you hear? It's a model from the psychoanalytic therapy. It's used in therapy sessions a lot. It's about the interaction between people, but also that we are able to have more autonomy in our lives, on our behavior. And that's this whole model. So the whole education or course I'm doing is about what interventions can you do to boost this autonomy for people. And what happens, we all grow up, we all are influenced by our caretakers, by parenting figures, and we also...
It's impossible to leave a mark somewhere. Even the good things that you do have another side.
Exactly. Yeah. And so sometimes you behave out of a pattern that is saying, expressing actually the feeling that you had as a child. And sometimes it's related to whatever someone important to you has been saying to you. And to be really aware of those mechanisms and patterns, and from what kind of script do you live, you know, what kind of assumptions do you have about yourself and about the world. If you can be aware of that, it changes your perspective on yourself, on others, on the world. You get more autonomy on how you actually want to shape your life, I think.
Yeah.
And at least how you interact with other people. I mean, that's always the mirror, right? When you interact with someone, a lot of things get triggered because you're living from this reference.
That last thing I didn't understand, but the rest I got.
So the reference is what did people say to you? How did you feel as a child? What kind of assumptions do you have about yourself?
Yeah, and when you're interacting with someone, things like that get triggered.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that a very big part is also noticing the voice in your head, what it's saying at a certain time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of things happen without noticing. You don't know.
It's so hard
unaware.
to get a grasp on it. Yeah. And also, more and more, I also feel like very often there's not a right way to do something or something, but very often it's like understanding that you do something and then being able to switch to both extremes or something. More like that, because when you have the choice to only do one thing, it's
having different choices and options is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
And not even on both extremes, but maybe on different scales or different, you know, you can have different, I can think about right or wrong, or about vulnerable, not vulnerable, or about, you know, and then move on those lines.
Yes, because being vulnerable is beautiful, but it's terrible if you can only be vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's not
good. And it's not always helpful, and it's not always useful.
No.
But I think that in the week that I had with you guys, and you were sharing also something artistically in the first day, for me also there is so much that's been, you know, transferred.
Yeah.
Which is saying a lot about personality. So I think that's why I was also tuned in to those kind of things, you know? That kind of language.
I have a question that is from a topic from before.
Okay.
I'm very curious about that because, well, we haven't talked at all about how you ended up with Sounds of Change, but that's maybe for later. But for now, I'm really curious because I just for a moment I had this vision of what it must feel like when you start working with an organization like that, and for the first time you get off the plane, or I don't know how you traveled there, and you're just there.
Yeah.
And then you have to manage that somehow.
Yeah.
How did that feel for you? I can imagine that that's pretty intimidating the first time.
Yeah, it was beautiful. The first project I did there was really a really nice group, actually. So I think I was lucky to be...
It's still people. So that's nice because you learned how to work with people in your study, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the Middle East is such... they're just so welcoming, so warm. But at the same time, it's such a different culture. So you feel like an alien.
Yeah.
I felt that I had to get rid of everything that I thought was functional in my way of working. So I thought, in the Netherlands, I did lots of trainings. I was training musicians, teachers, whatever. I did big projects, and all of these work forms, or how do you say it? Like, it's like the kind of the tricks. I didn't like to call them tricks, but people wanted to learn tricks. And I always said, no, it's not about tricks. It's about reading the people and connecting to them, and then finding a way that they can compose.
You can't trick honesty.
Exactly.
And truthfulness.
Exactly. So you have to always keep tuning in, which means as a workshop leader or whatever trainer, you need to be super aware in the moment. Yeah. But then when you're in this different context of the Middle East, you have to understand the context. Otherwise you cannot tune in. So when I first arrived there, I thought, wow, I really first need to understand more of these people, where we are. We were in Lebanon. First time I was in Lebanon. And many of them, so for example, they were Syrian refugees, a lot of them. and they were adults, and the idea was that they would also start working with children. So we had the training around working with different things that they can use also for children. And we started with the first thing. Normally I would lead a session and say, okay, let's start, And then Lucas, the founder of Sounds of Change, he said, I always start with the check-in. And I said, interesting. So we started with the check-in. It was new for me.
Yeah.
And that moment I understood why it was so important, because we did this circle. How do you feel? What's going on? How are you this morning? And one of the guys said, I'm really stressed actually, because I just got here by car. And in Lebanon, you have a lot of checkpoints.
Yeah. Oh my God! People
he got pulled over by the police, and they said, "Show me your papers."
Yeah.
He didn't have papers, and that's a very tricky situation in Lebanon. People are left, as a refugee, and they're welcome, but it's not really arranged for them in the right way.
Yeah.
So. And he said, I'm so stressed. And then he made kind of a joke, this police officer. So he said, I'm going to call your dad. Ha, ha, ha. Just wait here for 15 minutes. And he was just in so much stress. And then they released him. And it was just a joke. Like bullying, And so he said, so I'm happy to be here. I was looking forward to this music training. But I'm just I try to lower my stress level, because I'm super stressed. And maybe... if I have to leave the country, it's a disaster, of course. So that's when I realized, wow, this is a different situation.
Everybody has to, so you can really get these things out of the way, instead that they're boiling on the surface the whole time.
Yeah, and sometimes there has been a big fight in the community. Sometimes there has been an attack, a shooting, and people need to be able to share it. So, and every day, people live day by day. So because it can change every day, and anything can happen every day. So that, and for me also was the biggest learning situation in how am I vulnerable in this group. I have to show myself.
Yeah.
So at some point they also started to ask me why I do what I do. Yeah. Why am I there? And I felt so much grief over being, so... It's so weird also to move in a context that is not your context, right?
I can imagine. I'm sorry. I can imagine that it's also a difficult. There's a very dangerous assumption there that can really ruin the balance. I think this idea of I am someone who studied for this, and I'm from the Netherlands, and I am going to help you guys. Something. If that's somewhere in your head,
that often happens. I think for a lot of people that work in these areas,
then it's done, right? You cannot work with that assumption.
No, definitely not.
But I can hardly imagine that it wouldn't be somewhere.
Of course.
If you are from the Netherlands and you study it for it and you want to help people, how can that assumption, I see a problem there, because I really feel like that assumption is kind of hard to not have at all. Yeah. But at the same time, when you have it, it makes your work impossible. Yeah.
I think it's it had different layers. I also started to question this. Now I'm not working anymore for Sounds of Change, and it's also part of this reflective period where I also start to question what my role could be in the Middle East if we are, due to Corona crisis, not in the context anymore. So really being outside of the context, working online from a distance, I just really didn't feel how I can be of value there. Yeah. On the other hand, I also think that that the way we started to build capacity and the creative capacity, it's not there. So I felt that and I started to interview a lot of people about, am I seeing the right thing, or is this my perspective from a very Dutch
am I seeing what thing?
That it's needed. Yeah. The creativity in these areas that people
when you were
need
there, not with Zoom,
this was when I was there. And then I said I do feel I am aware of I'm coming from the West. So how do you see me? And am I coming here with values that are not matching your culture and is very arrogant to bring here?
Yeah.
Or does it match? And then I got beautiful conversations about this, and people said we really need to educate our children and young people on that they have a choice and that they can be themselves and they are allowed to be themselves. And no, you should never just go somewhere and start working with music with a group, because that doesn't make sense. But we always collaborated with local small organizations working on the same kind of values. So I don't think that we came there to say, we're from the West and we're going to bring you the values that you don't have. I don't think we did that at all. But I also now, I feel like I'm of more use in this local context of the Netherlands. I should be working here and having...
because you're more ingrained in the culture, because you can work more directly.
Yeah. So it could be that I keep working in the Middle East. I would love to, but then I would love to live there for a while.
Ooh, that's
Yeah, because otherwise I'm moving in and out, and I don't see. Yeah, I find that difficult.
Yeah, it creates more we when you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also something weird. Like, I'm going... Okay, even if you have taken away that assumption of, I am here and I'm going to help you, even then it's like, okay, we are here together. Okay, great, we're going to work together. Okay, and now I'm going back to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I talked to one of our partners, and he was always part of the sessions in Egypt, in Cairo, and that was something else, that environment. There's one part in Cairo that is so ignored by the government, so marginalized, and it's super heavy. And I kept coming back.
It's a capital of Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mean like a part in the city?
A part in the city.
Yeah. So like a wijk.
In the area. Yeah. And I said to him, I feel that I should maybe live a little bit more closer to this, so I don't move in and out. And then he said, well, actually, you're one of the first people that I feel that you're not so much out of place whenever you're here. You connect so easily to everyone in this area, and you're so aware of many things. So he said, I don't see so much of a problem there. So it can also be something in me that I felt like it's uncomfortable to move in and out.
But maybe it's also because you're fine-tuning what you're doing.
Yeah.
So maybe you are doing it acceptable already.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe you can do it even better if you take that part away. But because you're fine-tuning, everybody is already like, but you're doing fine. But maybe you are doing fine, but then you can do it much better even still. Yeah.
And that's, in general, if you move or work in these kind of contexts, it's so complicated and such a challenge.
You really have to think about your assumptions.
And also, you work in the middle of the heat of the fire. It's not many people reach out to these places because it's too dangerous, or they have...
I would think that there will be a lot of people, because I don't think everybody is doing it. But there's so many people that there are still a lot of organizations that are like, stuff is really going on there. And then when you collect that from all of the world, I would think that there would be a lot of people there still.
Yeah.
But not really.
There are, of course, some organizations and NGOs working there, but it's a complicated context. Really, politically, very complicated. Money-wise, it's not so sustainable. It's also hard
to put things off the ground because there's no supporting system. Sometimes I can imagine.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to build off from. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the organizations we worked with locally, they were very interesting, but super small, struggling. And I think that some of them are really right on, we should have the local musicians doing this work. But then the local musicians are not equipped to boost this creative part of people. And so we said, let us train the musicians there.
Yeah.
So that's the circle.
That does make more sense also.
Of course,
value-wise. That does make more sense. Yeah.
So some of the musicians were selected that we found and are being trained as a Sounds of Change trainer, so they can do the job there.
Yeah.
So it takes time to build that kind of structures.
So basically you guys start maybe the process with the group, but then it's taken over by a local musician.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
And does that keep running well so far?
So far it's growing slowly bigger and bigger. I also think that Corona is not really helpful, but it's working. There's some people...
Are the Corona values also, Corona rules also very strict there? I can imagine that they are like, oh, you have to do this, and then nobody follows them because
true, yeah.
it's not important compared to what is important every day.
Yeah, it depends on the place, but some places they were more strict and others less. And some of them, the government is now really, the curfew is, you have to be back at 6 p.m.
Oh yeah, people can't ignore those rules.
Exactly, and it's very tough government. So if you ignore the law, it's also very violent. So, but of course, people have different priorities, definitely.
Yeah.
If people in Cairo, in that area, don't work, they live from working in the streets. If they can't do that, they can't live.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, there's no choice.
Exactly.
As well as in India, I also saw some things like that in India. Like I do rickshaw rides.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I can't do that anymore. I can't work.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm going to starve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's a different reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And they don't. And in these areas, people don't trust the government. So whatever law or whatever rules they make,
they have to be
it's
enforced.
Usually in their not in their benefit. So they wouldn't trust the government.
Yeah, the only way the government can get their laws to work is if they enforce them really harshly. Because there's no, we're going to do this for the government, because there's no mutual benefit thing going on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different world.
Yes, it is a different world. Yeah, whoa, yeah. So now you quit working for Sons of Change, right?
Yep.
So, did you immediately start with Sons of Change when you were done with your study?
No, I started, I did that 4 years ago. So, no, when I when I finished my studies, I worked at high schools, and then I started to move. I did a lot in London projects, and then I did some educational projects in Overvecht. Overvecht. And no, so it was like slowly moving towards. I think I was 29 or something. Oh no, 30 probably when I did that. Yeah.
Do you feel that you've always been inspired for the work that you've been doing since you were done studying?
Always. Oh yeah, but I'm so... Whatever I did with you in that week of leadership, looking at your values, your assumptions...
Yeah, that must be great to lead.
It's lovely. And it's what I do for myself. That's why I'm so inspired by these kind of things. For me, I've been always the person that has been super clear on my values. I worked at a very cool high school, and at some point I felt, maybe it's time to move on. And then I thought, no, I should... be happy with this job and grateful.
But then there's something in you that's like...
Yeah, and then I look at that and I feel like, maybe it's time. And I always quit, and then I didn't have something else. And it was like on the edge, you know? And people always said, what? My brother, for example, he would call me, what are you doing? And I said, I have to do it. I can feel it. It's the right time.
Yes.
And then always something else came immediately, or I had some time of not doing anything.
Yeah.
And it was just what I needed to break loose from it. And it's the same. After that, I did a big project, the Muziekroute in Utrecht. It was also big, and I really developed my leadership and so many things. And then I felt it's time to, I have to stop it. And the project leader said, you can't stop now. It's really the worst timing. I said, but
so it was not even like, I want to stop. Oh, why are you doing this? But it was really like, no, don't stop. And you were like, no, I have to stop.
In all these places said, please don't stop. We really want you, and we make you an offer and whatever. And then I said, well, no, I think it's best that I stop. Yeah. But I want to, of course, see how we can make a smooth transition. Or I found a really cool other artistic leader, so it was no problem. And then I felt like, it was exactly the right time. Even though it's super weird feeling, because you also feel this paradox of it's been so nice. Why would you stop now? Yeah. And it's the same with Sounds of Change. Super sad also to leave, because it's one of the most beautiful jobs I've been doing.
I can imagine. I think.
Yeah, and I learned so much from that, and I think it's time for me to maybe give birth to something of my own in the Netherlands that is really having a local focus. Yeah. And I integrate all of my international experiences, all of the different groups I've been working with, and something else will start. And my business development things, and I had so much more. This was really like running an organization and growing the organization.
Yeah, because I have to be honest. I looked you up a little bit because I mean, we talked, of course, in the week, and I looked up Start to Change, Maite. It's like, oh, artistic director. Oh, you really did. It was not like, oh, I'm here and I'm just coaching. It was like, no, really inside the organization.
Yeah. So a lot came down to strategic thinking, also this assumption thinking, the values. Can we keep relating to the values? What could be a next step? Yeah. What is the future of science of change?
You have to do even more than you would do as a coach or something, because you have to be on top of the whole thing. So you have to be 3 steps ahead of what's happening. And whoa, yeah.
Yeah, it's big stuff.
That's wow, that's awesome. Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that. That's why I asked you the question. Like, did you ever always feel inspired by your work?
Yeah.
Because I really feel like you have this. I really feel like I just had this feeling, like you have this intuition in how you make these decisions, just like, I'm going to do this. And there seems to be some direction in that. So I was really curious, like, what is the direction for you? But
and I think it's also like building an organization. It also makes clear what you don't want. So some of the things, for example, working only around financial stuff or trying to find funding, it's necessary. So you will never really, I learned a lot from that, but I also felt at some point we need a business leader, because it's not I'm here for the content.
Yeah,
and I'm
so
here
that's
for the
why
artistic.
you became artistic director.
Exactly, and to find someone that matches the team with their qualities, and not to always take everything on your own shoulders.
Yeah.
But it's valuable to have a combination of skills, I think, because often I see musicians that they don't really have entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah.
Or and I always like to find a way in that, to be a bit more independent as an entrepreneur, and and move in the political context a bit.
But it's also exciting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I went through your sentence, but I really feel like you really feel that it's meaningful or something.
Yeah.
That it's. I also feel that when I'm organizing something that is bigger than just something that I would do for myself, you feel like, oh, but this. Yeah. I'm creating something. Yeah. As well, it's creative.
Yeah.
It's not economic.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's a creative process. Yeah. You are creating something.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But of course, closer to my heart is working on how do we see what the impact is. Where do we want to go? Yeah. For the people, for society, for. Yeah. So my strongest qualities are, developing that kind of things. Yeah. So and then someone else structuring that.
Yeah. So did you push all the grind towards Lucas?
Yeah. Good luck with that. Yeah. No. Yeah. We totally shared that a lot. But no. At some point I can be really stubborn also. So I was at some point I said we should have a business leader, and it should be, and then it was like, no, but we don't have the resources. Yeah. So it's us. Okay, let's do it. Let's go for it. And then I felt like, let's find a way to make this like a creative process. And what can I learn from this that is valuable? And also bear in mind that it has weaknesses. So of course my perfectionism also had to be, lowering this voice down of it cannot be perfect in that sense, because we're pioneering. And it was exciting, definitely.
Yeah. I don't know what to say right now. I'm just so into that when there was a point, it's like, oh, okay, I'm here. Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I do feel that I have questions, but I'm going to.
We also have to finish a bit because I have to do an interview also.
Yeah. Well.
In 20 minutes.
Okay, well, let's just cut it off then.
Yeah.
This is great. I really love talking to you. I really enjoyed
Thanks.
it. But yeah, okay, we are 10 seconds from an hour. Wait, I'm going to it now. We have 5 seconds. Yeah.
So that was exactly an hour, if you take away the intro and the outro, which is not that special, but I thought it would be cool. Wow, I really noticed lately that I've been meeting more people that are really doing stuff out in the real world with vision, and you immediately notice it. They are alive, they have a direction, and they give life to everything that they meet. And I really have this feeling with Maite as well. That's just awesome. I really want to be someone like that as well. I think that's a great thing to do. So that's very inspiring for me. And yeah, was just very happy that she took the time to sit down with me. Afterwards, I talked with her a little bit, and we found out that our visions, our things that we find important, line up quite a bit. So that's very cool. Maybe she's going to start something on her own next year, some kind of how should I call it? She's not sure what it's going to be yet, but there's going to be something probably. So yeah, we were talking that it might be a great place for me to do an internship, which would also be very useful for her. So we'll see what comes about from that. It's of course very hard to really pin these things down. Sometimes when you have an idea, nothing happens with it later, but I think it would be great to be able to work with her a little bit. So that's all for the podcast. Thanks a lot for listening, and have a nice day.